I'm going with a change for this video. The official reason that I'm giving is that I've had several complaints in the past few videos that a certain somebody just lies here and falls asleep and doesn't bother participating at all. So maybe if I sit up here next to him, he'll stay awake. The actual reason is that I'm under the weather and can't be arsed standing. I've been infected by a small person and I'm just feeling a little run down. Throat's a bit sore. Don't know what a sore throat's got to do with not standing up, but I'm going with it anyway. So if I sound a little off in this video, that is the reason why. This video that is going to be discussing the new rumoured APS-C Sony camera to replace the a6600. Now, the specs for this camera are somewhat limited. What there is kind of exciting and also kind of confusing at the same time. So what's been said so far is really in two categories. One that is information that they are 99% certain we are going to see, of which it's a a6600 replacement that will be announced later on this month, that it will carry the same general body form factor as the a6600, but with many small improvements taken from the ZV-1 and the A7C, and that it will be branded as a vlogger's camera. Other information they've put is in the category of 65% chance, so, you know, may or may not happen. They reckon it will be called the a6700, which would make sense, I suppose. 32 megapixel sensor, 4K 60p up 10-bit video recording, a fully articulating screen, a readout at 12-bit of 17 milliseconds. Strange spec to put into a rumour post. Form factor identical to the A7C and better LCD and EVF with minor tweaks to the body. So a bit confusing to say that it's a camera that will have the same general form factor as the a6600 but will have an identical form factor to the A7C, given the fact that those two cameras have different form factors to each other. So which is it? I'm going to suspect that it's going to be something in the middle of the two in terms of form factor. I think a lot of people I've seen comments say that they would rather the form factor of the a6600 than that of the A7C. However, if it is a 32 meg sensor, that's obviously a lot more information, a lot more processing power that's going to need to be handled. 4K 60p 10-bit, again, is going to need a pretty sizable body, and I think the a6600 body is too small to realistically handle that. So I suspect they will physically need a slightly larger body. Maybe not quite the size of the A7C, but certainly bigger than the 6600, so somewhere in between the two. However, two changes I hope they do make over the a6600 if it is going to have a slightly larger body. Number one, include a thumb joystick, because I hate having to try and navigate the menus using the touch wheel. And secondly, put a shutter dial on the front, because at the minute we've got two dials to control three settings. Much rather have one dial for each one like you've got on the A7 III. But the performance specs of the camera, although somewhat limited, are quite interesting, I think. 32 megapixel sensor means it's a brand new sensor. Currently, the A6000 series cameras have used a 24 meg sensor for as long as I can remember. And I think fundamentally it's always been the same basic sensor, just revised and improved, but there's limitations to it. So to have a brand new sensor, fantastic, and we'll put it in line with the Canon 6D Mark II. No, not 6D Mark II, M6 Mark II. However, if the readout spec of it, 17 milliseconds, is right, then it's not a stack sensor, which would have been probably a little bit much to hope for, but, you know, that would have been great to see. 17 milliseconds, if that is the case, I think, would mean it's obviously nowhere near as fast as the A1, the A9, not even the A7S III, but would mean it's quicker than the A7 III, and I suspect, as such, quicker than the A6600 series as well. However, I don't know if that faster readout speed would then be cancelled out by the higher resolution. So we may or may not see improved rolling shutter performance, or it might be similar to what we've currently got. Hopefully better, but who knows. No word on shooting speeds, but I would be amazed if it shoots slower than the A6600. The A6000 series for quite a while now have been at 11 frames a second, or up to 11 frames a second. And I would be amazed if it's anything less than that. I doubt it would go much higher, in all honesty. I think it would probably be around about the same, which for me would be the biggest disappointment about this entire camera, in all honesty. It was rumored quite a while ago that Sony were working on an APS-C, like sports focus camera, like basically a baby A9, or now maybe even a baby A1. But fundamentally, like taking one of those cameras but putting an APS-C sensor in it, because then it would be nowhere near as expensive. Because the A1's a brilliant camera, but out of the price range of most people. Whereas if Sony were to come out with an A7 style body, but with a stacked APS-C camera that could shoot more than 20 frames a second, that would basically create a prosumer level APS-C camera for sports and wildlife shooters who can't justify ridiculously expensive full frame bodies. It would fill the gap in the market that used to be dominated by the Canon 7D series, of which currently there is nothing really for mirrorless that challenges that. So I was really hoping for something like that, and with a central viewfinder as well. Doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. It seems like this is still going to have the rangefinder style viewfinder off to the side, which in some respects I like the rangefinder style because my nose doesn't crash into the screen. However, I prefer a central viewfinder because my eye is then over the center line of the lens, which makes kind of guiding and tracking subjects a lot easier, I find. So it doesn't sound like this is going to be that rumored A7000. Maybe that will come further down the line, who knows, but if this upcoming camera is the A6700, then I don't think we would see an A7000 for at least 12 months. Would seem strange for Sony to bring out a new flagship APS-C camera to then immediately supersede it with a much better series. However, in better news, the spec that really does appeal to me is the 4K 60 10-bit. Hopefully, it does have that. Hopefully, it's at a higher bitrate than the 100 megabits a second we're used to seeing currently from the A6000 series. To be honest, even if it was 4K 30 at 10-bit, I'd be pretty happy. Just having 10-bit video would be great, but 4K 60 would be fantastic. And not just for any potential A6700 buyers, but also anyone waiting for the A7 IV, whenever that's announced, because I would be amazed if Sony bring out an A6700 that can shoot 4K 60 10-bit and then not put the same video specs in the A7 IV. So definitely good signs potentially from these specs, but obviously there still remains a lot of unanswered questions, like will it have IBIS? Presumably it will if it's replacing the A6600. Will it be a decent IBIS system, or is it still going to be a load of garbage? What battery is it going to use? Again, you would assume the FZ100, given that it's replacing the A6600. So all in all, hopefully, I would say that it's going to be basically the A6600 with these rumored specs on top of it. The A6600 is a good camera, but for me, the 66, the 64, and the 6100 are too similar. It's all a bit confusing. Like, I'm shooting with the A6400 now. I considered getting the A6600, but from what I can tell, the only real differences are the bigger battery, which then forces a bigger grip, and the IBIS system. But for the price difference between the two, there wasn't enough of a difference for me to justify the A6600. In all honesty, if the A6100 had picture profiles, I'd have bought that instead. But this 6700 sounds like a much bigger step forward. Brand new sensor, much higher resolution, better video specs. Yeah, it all seems like a pretty good camera. However, by the same token, the fact that they're saying it's going to be pushed at vloggers, I'm a little concerned about that. Partly, I think constantly saying this is aimed at vloggers would risk alienating stills photographers. Come here. Oh. Hello. I've been tagged in on babysitting duties. You're the one that's infected me. Aren't you? Yeah. But I think constantly saying that everything's focused at vloggers risks alienating the stills photographers. And a flagship level camera is going to be a big appeal to stills photographers as well. It is, isn't it? And also this idea of a fully articulating screen, personally, I think it's a bad idea. With a flip up and over like the A6400, the screen's sitting above the lens. So when you're looking at the screen, your eyes are still staying on the same axis as the lens, so it doesn't become obvious that you're not looking down the lens, you're actually watching yourself. But if you put the screen off to the side, you can kind of tell that you're not looking down the lens anymore, so you risk losing the engagement with your audience. If they are fitting it with a 32 meg sensor and it's got 4K 60 10-bit, that's going to need a hell of a lot more processing power than the processor currently fitted in the A6600. So could see a processor like we've got in the A7S III. What is it? The ZR, XR? Can't even remember what they're called. Bison XR, is it, I think? Basically, if they put one of those processors into this camera, then that would presumably mean that we would see the menu system of the S3 and even possibly full touch functionality as well. So yes, it would be an articulating screen, which I wouldn't be too happy about, but it would be a much better screen than what we're currently got as well. So in some respects, this A6700 could be a big improvement over the 66, and in some respects, if these rumours are right, it could actually be worse as well. So, all a bit confusing. What do you make of it all? Would you buy this camera with these specs or not? Yes. Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. While you're down there, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, and then hopefully, say it with me, we'll see you in the next video.